or a Kahalaliam, La Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahawashai, Bahashem Racha Kodash, as it is written, let the elders, the rule well, be counted worthy of double honors, especially they who labor in the word and doctrine, which are the Presbyterian of Grey Millstone, beginning with the elder apostles, the elder bishops, and the elders on down. Peace and salutation to all the Akim of the hopeful elect. May Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahawashai, Bahashem Racha Kodash, Barakatham. Yahweh is the true name of the Heavenly Father, whom the world ignorantly calls God. Yahweh means he to be, he is, he exists. Okay, that's the true power of heaven and earth, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. His name is Yahweh. And Yahawashi is the true name of his only begotten Son, whom the world ignorantly calls JC. Yahawashi means the deliverer of his Savior, of his salvation. That's the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, and the Messiah that came to die for the sins of Israel, beginning with the elect. And the Ruach HaKodesh is very holy. These are the names that it's supposed to call upon and pray to, especially so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, and all among the heathen. They may look like the heathen, but still then goes back to the patriarchy of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob on your father's side. Shalom, Saints of Yasharallah. My name is Gabah of Thoughtful Election from the Columbia Prophet in Toronto, and today is August the 5th, right? On August 5th, another day closer to the deliverance of the elect of Israel, the destruction of Babylon the Great, aka America, which America and the state of Israel are going to be destroyed, preceding biblical prophecy, because of all the wickedness and all the evil that they've done on the earth. Okay, but America is going to remain a desolate wilderness and it's going to be burning for a long time. That's a prophecy that's written about concerning Babylon the Great, in the scriptures. Which this video that I'm about to feature is going to be going to that topic. Okay, but I also say the state of Israel is going to be destroyed as well. It's going to have to be ultimately be restored and rebuilt back up, and it's going to be held as headquarters of the kingdom of heaven and the Lord Yahawashi, because the kingdom of heaven is going to be here on the earth. Okay, so I said that any day now all hell could break loose, as going to a time in the scriptures known as Jacob trouble, or as Jacob in the Hebrew. It's going to be a time of great tribulation, great trouble, great stress, great pain and suffering on the earth, great havoc. Okay, so much so to a point where even the Lord Yahawashi said that if those days were not shortened, there should no flesh left to be saved. But for the elect's sakes, those days are going to be shortened. Okay, so that's why ultimately the Most is going to have to intervene. In the book of Daniel, 12th chapter, the first it talks about how I might call the archangel, okay, the great prince is going to stand for the people for the children of their people, which basically to deliver the elect from the time of tribulation. Okay, also at the same time too, the so-called white man Esau Edom is about to implement his so-called new world order system, okay, to bring in the surveillance system. Okay, that's why you see everything going digital. All these like touchless, cashless, agenda being pushed on the masses. Okay, even over there in Kenya, the president of Kenya, Ruto, he basically pushing, is pushing that heavy towards his people. Okay, they're basically trying to come up with a technocracy. Okay, where basically everything is tracked and traced. Okay, and the AI is going to play a major role in that. That's why you see them, building and going heavy on all these so-called data centers. Okay, they're pushing that, basically like that surveillance system. Okay, they have the so-called surveillance pricing even. Okay, everything is basically pointing towards that, the agenda of the new world order, which basically is going to be, everything's going to basically go on on the grid, right, on the electric grid. And so they're going to push a mark of the beast, which is the chip, and they're here to warn you from taking that, to admonish you from taking that. Because if you take the chip, which the chip is a mark of the beast, okay, don't let anybody else tell you different. Because the chip is indeed the mark of the beast. That's prophesied in the book of Revelation, the 10th chapter, okay, which is basically going to force on the people to take it in their hands or in their foreheads. And if you do take it, you're going to be destroyed. So we're here to warn you and to admonish you from taking that. And to repent and ultimately, receive these truths, so that in those days it may be delivered and found worthy, to escape the same things that are coming. Okay, so when I say that Shabbat this month falls in on Monday at even to Tuesday at even. Okay, and that's Shabbat. Okay, that's new moon. That's the new moon this month. Also going into it, this video, like I said, this man, I believe, is a pastor. I'm not sure what his name is, but basically, he's one of the so-called Edomite-looking man, and basically says how the America is indeed Babylon. Okay, so much so that he says in that way. But basically, the fact of the matter is that he is right. Okay, America indeed is Babylon the Great. Okay, prophesied in the book of Revelation, 17th chapter, the 18th chapter, and very other places in the scriptures. It talks about how Babylon shall be basically lacking unto the destruction of Babylon is going to be lacking unto the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. That's the book of Isaiah, the 13th chapter. Okay, so the point of the matter is that America, which is Babylon the Great, is going to be destroyed. Ultimately, the way the lifestyle that America pushes is nothing but confusion. Okay, it pushes that do as the world spirit. Okay, pushes that basically you are your own God. Okay, and that is nothing but confusion. People come to America to be all that they can be. Okay, because in other places in the world, they don't have the same privileges or the same freedoms. So therefore, that shows that America is indeed a Babylon, because America is basically gives people the freedom to commit wickedness. Okay, has been the same thing. Has been the same. All the previous empires that came to pass, okay, but they all got destroyed because their sins and the wickedness had reached unto the heavens. Something with America. America's sins and wickedness have reached unto the heavens. So therefore, it's ripe for destruction. So go into it. Let me go and play the video, and then I'm bring out a few scriptures, and I'm going to go into it.
Well, Babylon always promises the same thing, whatever iteration she takes. Of course, if you're in 96 AD, that's Rome. If you're in, and here goes back to wonky or janky interpretations of Revelation. If you've got a bad lens by which you approach the book, then the United States is sitting on a hill that's about, but if you're reading it honestly, right, this isn't some reference to Russia or China, like this is about us. Like the US is just as much Babylon. Her culture just as much says, you want all your sensuality satisfied, come to me. Don't worship Jesus, come to me. You want comfort, don't.
By the way, his name is not Jesus, his name is Yahushua. Yahushua is the true name of the Messiah. So, he being a Christian, especially not Jesus, but his name is Yahushua. Okay, Yahushua HaMashiach, the so-called black man. Okay, but the point of the matter is that he says basically America pushes that lifestyle to where, basically they want you to come in and satisfy, all your pleasures, all your needs, okay, all your, desires, okay? Basically, it's very alluring, okay? It's a very alluring environment. That's why, people, all around the world, they basically look towards America, okay? They see that, as basically, the place to be, okay? Which Hollywood is behind it, Hollywood, they push, they basically, they give America that, basically, that view that people see it as being, basically as being heaven on earth, but really is the opposite. Okay, because like I said, it pushes wickedness. Let's go and get this in the scriptures. Go to the book of Revelation, chapter 17, and start from verse 1. And it says, these are the apostle John, okay, on the island Patmos, right? It says, first one says, so the topic here says the dome of Babylon, right? It says, and there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, come hither, I will shew unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon the many waters. Okay, so this guy right here, he went ahead and actually admitted that America could very well be Babylon. Okay, so that being said, let's go ahead and read the judgment for Babylon the Great. Okay, because ultimately this is something that these Christians actually, they tend to avoid. Okay, they tend to to kind of like, gloss over. Okay, but we hate to hear the truth. Okay, America indeed is Babylon the Great that's going to be destroyed. It says, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore which sitteth upon many waters. Okay, which like when you go down the chapter, it breaks down as you go. Right? It says, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of fornication. Because once again, this is, like I said, this man right here said basically, America is the place where people come to come to fulfill all their pleasures, come to basically live out their dreams. Okay, America is known as a land of opportunity. Okay, the land of dreams and of opportunity. Okay. The land of basically of freedoms. Okay, privileges. You see, so ultimately, that's why America, Trump, with these tariffs, when Trump puts his tariffs, he's able to put tariffs on all those other countries because all the other countries, they desire to trade with America. America is the number 1 consuming country in the earth. You see, it says, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, which when you go to fornication basically means adultery. Okay, which basically, that goes into, all these philosophies that are pushed over here, that are pushed, by America, like things like feminism, things like, capitalism, okay, all these kind of isms they could think of, okay, they all come from America, right? And the inhabitants of the earth, like democracy, right? So-called women's liberation, right? And the list goes on. So and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of fornication, down to a point where basically the whole world has been Americanized or westernized. Okay, you have McDonald's all over the place. Okay, all these food chains that are found in America, they're now in places that they weren't before. Starbucks. Okay, of course you have Amazon, that's worldwide, and many more, right? It says, so he carried me away in spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Like I say, as you go down into the verse, it breaks down, right? So the one here is going to be basically talking about is the great whore, which is America, the great whore. When you go into a whore, basically a whore is somebody that a whore is a person that that's used and abused, okay, by others willy-nilly. In America, the same way. Okay, like I say, people come here to basically live for their pleasures. Okay, they might come here for for a week or two, to live out the wildest dreams. Then they go back to their country. Okay, to basically indulge in the demons. Okay, that's something with the harlots, right? It says she carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon the scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy. Okay, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. So I think too about America, they push blasphemy. America, that's where it tells you, Egypt, where our Lord was crucified. Okay, basically America is where they extort Lord Yahushua HaMashiach. Okay, and then they push that that basically Babylonian religion. Okay, like things like Christmas. Okay, New Year's. Okay, all these things go back to all these so-called holidays. Is meant to basically exalt the Messiah. They're meant to exalt like things like the Passover. Okay, now you have Easter. Okay, Easter. All these things came from America. Okay, you have like the Pride Parade. Okay, all these all these like basically the lifestyle of the West is nothing but blasphemy, right? It's full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones, pearls, having a golden cup and full of abominations and filthiness of fornication. Because America, once again, this is how the people look at America. Okay, they saw America as heaven on earth. It was 5, says he's a poet, and upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots, the abomination of the earth. Okay, and that's that fits America, man. America is, once again, is where all kind of abominations, are pushed. You see, and the list, be listing these, like the amount of abomination that pushed in America, it can be listed, for days, right? The point I want to get is basically says mystery Babylon, because it's a mystery, something that that's hidden, something that's not known, something that's not, widely, understood. Okay, and that's what and why is that? That's because America, as far as it's been pushing its wickedness, that's where also it tried to basically, appear to the world, as being a so-called God-fearing country. When you see the American dollar says, in God we trust. Okay, they have all these so-called, they push that Christian lifestyle, but really it's not really the Christian lifestyle that they push is not the same Christian lifestyle that that was at the time of the apostles. At the time of the apostles, they were known as, the word Christ was not being used. Basically, they were the followers of Hamashiach, or the anointed. Okay, and and the Christian that the Christians back then, is not the same as the world now. say, they were not celebrating, Christmas. They were not celebrating birthdays or Easter. Okay, they were celebrating, the true high holidays. But now, America, basically, tells the scriptures, Satan has, I should go and get that real quick. Transformed himself, right? Yeah, kind of here. The book of 2 Corinthians 11 verse 14 and reads, "And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light." That's ultimately, why, it's a mystery, okay? Because, America, basically, to others, it appears as being, a God-fearing country, but really, when you really look into it, it's not, okay? So let's go ahead and jump down to verse 15, right? Let's go into, the breakdown of it, and then also get the judgment for it, right? It says, so verse 15 says, "And he said unto me, the waters which thou sawest where the horse sitteth are peoples, multitudes, and nations, and tongues." Okay, so that means that what? Basically, America, is going to be on top of the world. Okay, as far as being in power. Okay, because ultimately, America is at the top. Okay, and and is is right beside Israel, which America props up Israel. Right, these two countries are on top, and everybody else, is basically marching to the drum beats. Right, and it said that to me, the waters which thou sawest, where the horse sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. The 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hit the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Okay, so now we're going to the judgment of Babylon. Okay, and also that's going to come, by way of that nuclear destruction. The 10 horns basically this represents, the EU nations that before, they were, as it stands, they are allied unto America. So you have, like NATO nations and the EU, right? So when you go into it, it says America's allies will take part in this destruction by way of fire. That's right. Okay, and why is that? Because ultimately, as you see, America, being basically America got dragged into this war against Iran by Israel. Okay, which is something that none of the allies of NATO had agreed upon. And now, NATO and other allies are suffering for it because Iran, basically is cutting down all the power. Okay, the oil prices are going through the roof. Okay, and people are suffering for it because, for one, Iran, it holds I believe it's a fifth of the supply of oil in the world. Okay, so and that's driving markets to really, to be very to fluctuate a lot. It's all basically on the fault of America. And also, the fact that Trump, is basically, he's been slandering, or rather, he's being he's been insulting the European countries. Okay. They're calling them, weak. Okay, calling them, basically, afraid. Okay, to help out in the war, which like I said, these countries, none of them ever signed to this so-called war that America got involved in. You see, so as this war continues on to rage on, okay, it's only going to drive, that divide between America and its NATO allies, and eventually it's gonna get to a point where they're going to just they're gonna have to they're gonna say F it, ultimately just come and destroy the whore, and because ultimately that's gonna seem like the solution, okay? Because Trump, Trump being the crazy man that he is, Trump is making is doing too much. Okay, he's making a lot of waves, and it's not good for the world economy. Okay, so simply put. As verse says, verse 17, "For the Most High hath put in their hearts to fulfill His will." The Heavenly Father, Yahweh Shem Shai. This is a movie. He is the creator. He is the director, the producer, and everything. So He is the one that's orchestrating all these things behind the scenes. It's for the Most High hath put in their hearts or their minds to fulfill His will, and to agree and to give the kingdoms unto the beast, until the words of the Most High shall be fulfilled. So, and that's how it's been, as far. Okay, America, has been the hegemony over these other countries, but now, like you see the countries, they're deciding to go their own ways. Like you have, the BRICS nation, they're forming up, and they're getting, they're getting more allies to join them. Okay, that's because the Most High, is taking away that glory from Babylon. It's taking away that, submission that countries had towards Babylon, or basically that alliance that they had towards America, right? Verse 18, and the woman which thou sawest is a great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth, which is America. Chapter 18, right? It says, Verse 18, verse 1 says, Babylon is fallen. Verse 1 says, and after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. Okay, basically, it came with a, with a very, in a very the very shining light, right? It says, and he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of evil of every false spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Okay, that's after basically the destruction of America, by way of destruction, because it's read earlier, it said that America is going to be burnt up. Actually, let's go ahead and get that. Let's get in the book of Isaiah, right? Chapter 13, verse 19, and it says, and Babylon, the glory of the kingdoms, and the beauties of Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when the Most High overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. You see, and we know, ancient Babylon, is still intact, which is now, but now basically in the location of modern day Iraq. Okay, but the modern day, the Babylon the Great, or the new Babylon, which is America, this is prophesied to happen. But basically, these are prophecies that are supposed to happen in the future events, which that we're living in these times. Okay, because Babylon, the glory of the kingdoms, the beauty of Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when the Most High overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. Another example to show you basically that how America is really, the glory of the beauty of Chaldees and the excellency. I just saw the news the other day that basically I think it was somewhere in Morocco. Morocco, yeah, where they actually had, they named the whole highway after Trump. Okay, there's they have a highway in Morocco, I think it is, like one of those Arab countries in Africa. Okay, they named a whole highway after this man Trump. You see, so that goes to show you that that's a glory of of America, right? It says so back in Revelation 18 verse 1 says, and after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having a great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of evil spirits. Because again, America is going to be destroyed, and not nuclear destruction. Okay, it's going to basically be turned into a desert. Okay, and then you're going to have all these desert creatures that's going to be dwelling here in America. So have evil spirits, coming about. We're gonna have evil false spirits that's gonna be in the place as well, right? It says, you see, yeah, for 2 says, for all nations have drunk of the wrath of fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth have are rocks reached through the abundance of our delicacies. Okay, and it tells you what? It tells you that before, says in scriptures basically how does it go? Let's go and get it. So I'm quoting. I don't wanna butcher the words, right? Pride goeth before destruction. Yeah, kind of here. Proverbs, the book of Proverbs 16 verse 8 and 18. Proverbs 16 verse 18, and says, pride goeth before destruction, and haughty spirit before a fall. So America, is at at its height as it is. Okay, it's been at its height, at its glory. Okay, but without pride, that's when after that comes the destruction. You see, all these other countries, they've propped up America. They've gassed America up. Okay, now America's gonna be popped like a balloon, right? It says, on the merchants of the earth, our works reach through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. Okay, so this is basically going to be, the right before the destruction, because the angels are going to come and deliver the elect out of America. They're going to be beamed up into the chariots, so-called UFOs, okay, so that they can be delivered from the coming, from the destruction, right? It says, for her sins have reached unto heaven, and the Most High hath remembered her iniquities. Considering America, his sins, have reached into heaven, like literally, right? Even when you go into like there's this thing known as the space debris, where all these satellites, they break up. America's always, shooting up like rockets, satellites, into the atmosphere. Now it's a point where there's something known as space debris, which is like space, a waste in space. Okay, so that's wickedness, man. So American sins have literally reached even into the heavens, right? But also on a spiritual level, that goes into like all the wickedness that America has done on the earth, the bloodshed, the murder, the treachery, the lies, the stealing. America has done all these things. They have reached its peak, right? It says verse 6. Let's see here. So point I want to make. I should if I can find it here. Let's keep going. It says, verse 6 says, reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her double according to her works. In the cup which she hath filled to her double. The double, the double destruction. It also goes into the word Merathaim, which basically means double rebelliousness. Okay, which America, that's what America exudes. So at the same time too, in the scriptures, when you go into the law, it says if a man is still, I'm not sure going to get that. Let's see. Yeah, Khan right here. Book of Exodus 22 verse 7 says, if a man shall deliver unto his neighbor money or stuff to keep, and it be stolen out of the man's house, if the thief be found, let him pay double. Okay, that's America is known as the house of the thief. Okay, America came in and stole, for one, the land that they occupy, stole land. Then he went ahead and stole, so-called Negroes from Africa, okay, brought them over to the Americas, okay. Ever since then, he has been robbing the whole world blind. Okay, that's what America. That's why America's gonna, or these Edomites are gonna pay double. Okay, which really is gonna be more than double. It's gonna be manifold. It says, reward her even as she rewarded you, double unto her double according to her works. In the cup which she filled. In the cup which she had filled to her double. So therefore, this guy right here, he does not know that really, this is, or he should know if it's really a scholar, and the America being Babylon, it's going to be destroyed. It's going to be utterly judged with fire. You see.
Reading it honestly, right? This isn't some reference to Russia or China. Like, this is about us. Like the U.S. is just as much Babylon. Her culture just as much says, you want all your sensuality satisfied, come to me. Don't worship Jesus, come to me. You want comfort. Don't worry, come to me. You want your best life now, you come to me. That's the lie of Babylon. And wherever, because Babylon riding the beast, right? That's the first beast that comes out of the sea, which
So now we go to something else. But let's go ahead and finish. Let's go back to the book of Revelation. Second book of Isaiah 13. Yeah. So back in Isaiah 13 verse 20 it says, "It shall never be inhabited." Right? America says, "It shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there. Neither shall their shepherds make their fall there." Kind of. So yeah. So Arabian pitch tent there. Basically, like there won't be any more. You see them Arabs that come over here. They have their setups. They have their shops. Okay, usually they're when you go into Arab, it means like a mingled people. Okay, and it's mostly the heathen. Okay, the heathen are able to come in to America, and set up shop. Could they be like gas stations? Whether they be all these other like the convenience stores. For the most part, the heathen they take up all these are going to be done away with. You see, it says it shall not be dwelt. Shall not be dwelt in from a generation to generation, right? So America, its time is very near to an end. 21 says, "But wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be full of doleful creatures." Right? Like I say, it's going to be like a lot of desert creatures and wild creatures, and owls shall dwell there, and satyrs shall dance there. We're going to word satyr, like the elder brothers brought out. Basically, this is like a demonic, it's a demon, it's a demonic spirits, right? And the wild beasts when the wild beasts of the island shall cry in the desolate houses, and dragons in the pleasant palaces, and her time is near to come, and her days shall not be prolonged. That's right. So once I said, America, his days are numbered, man. America's days are it's over. It's done. Okay, they just finished. They just had the 250th year. And that basically, marks the end of empires. You see. So that I'm going to tell you, I say, brate hawa shai, I say, kuma sharwallah, wa abad babal, shalom hilad, shalom alaikum.